Does free will really exist? Are we in control of our choices? Welcome to Phi-Wisdom, the channel that helps you see the world through the lens of philosophy and critical thinking. Today, we're tackling a question that directly impacts our everyday lives and the deepest decisions we make: free will. Have you ever made a decision and felt like it was you and only you who made it? Whether it's choosing a career, a life partner, or something as simple as ordering coffee instead of tea, was that truly your choice? Or were you already influenced by hidden factors you weren't even aware of? The debate between free will and determinism has been going on for centuries, involving some of the greatest philosophers and scientists in history. Are we truly the authors of our actions, or are we simply products of biological, social, and psychological forces beyond our control? Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss out on upcoming videos about philosophy and deep thinking. And if you want to explore this topic further, check the description for a recommended book to dive deeper while also supporting the channel. Let's get started. Before we go any further, let's define what we mean by free will. Free will is the ability to make choices freely, without being entirely determined by external or internal influences. It's the idea that when faced with multiple options, we can genuinely choose one over the other on our own. Let's take a simple example. Imagine you're at a restaurant, debating between pizza and salad. If you have total free will, then your choice depends only on you. But if your decision is influenced by your upbringing, your mood, an advertisement you saw earlier, or even your gut bacteria subtly pushing you toward a certain food, then was your choice truly free? And that's where the debate begins. Chapter 2, Defenders of Free Will. Many philosophers have argued that human beings are free to make their own choices. Descartes and the freedom of will. René Descartes believed that our ability to think and doubt is proof that we are free. To him, human will is infinite. Even if we are limited by our bodies or knowledge, our minds can always choose. Free will is the mark of perfection that God has given us. Descartes. According to Descartes, we are not automatons. While external influences exist, we always have the power to say yes or no. Sartre and radical freedom. Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist philosopher, takes this idea even further. He argued that we are completely free, but this freedom is terrifying. According to Sartre, we are condemned to be free. No excuse can justify our choices, not society, not our past, not our emotions. Even in a prison, a person can choose how to respond to their situation. Consider a student who fails an exam. They might say, "It wasn't my fault, my professor was unfair." Or they could say, "I could have studied harder, but I chose not to." For Sartre, the second answer is the most honest one. We always have a choice, but we often make excuses. Chapter 3, are we really free? The argument for determinism, but other thinkers have challenged this optimistic view. According to them, our choices are actually dictated by invisible forces. 1. Spinoza and absolute determinism. Baruch Spinoza was one of the strongest advocates for determinism, the idea that everything in the universe follows cause and effect laws, including our thoughts and actions. Think of a clock. It functions according to a precise mechanism. To Spinoza, we too are mechanisms, influenced by our genetics, upbringing, and environment. Men think they are free, but they are unaware of the causes that determine them. Spinoza. If you choose coffee over tea, it's not out of pure freedom. It's because your history, unconscious preferences, and even your hormones influence that choice before you were even aware of it. Freud and the power of the unconscious. Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, adds another layer to this debate. Our desires and choices are shaped by our unconscious mind. Imagine someone who keeps making the same mistakes in love, always choosing toxic partners. They believe they are making a free choice, but in reality, they are guided by unresolved psychological wounds. Freud would argue that we are not truly in control of ourselves because our decisions are influenced by hidden forces shaped by our past and subconscious mind. Chapter 4, Can Science Settle the Debate? Today, neuroscience is shaking up this debate. Some experiments suggest that our decisions are made by our brains before we are even consciously aware of them. The Benjamin Libet experiment. In the 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet conducted a fascinating study. He asked participants to press a button whenever they wanted while measuring their brain activity. The result? The brain had already decided before the person was consciously aware of their decision. This suggests that our choices may be predetermined before we even realize we are making them. But does this mean we have no free will at all, or just that our consciousness lags slightly behind our brain? The debate remains open. Chapter 5. So, are we free or not? As with many philosophical questions, there is no definitive answer. Perhaps we are not completely free, but we are not completely determined either. We are influenced, but we can learn to recognize and overcome these influences. Even if our choices are shaped by external factors, we can still take responsibility for them. Freedom may not mean being completely independent, but rather understanding what influences us in order to make better decisions. Conclusion: is free will an illusion? So after all this, what do you think about free will? Are we truly free to make our own choices, or are we just pawns in a giant game of cause and effect? Let me know in the comments what you think. Subscribe to Phi-Wisdom so you never miss a video on philosophy and deep thinking. Check the description for a recommended book if you want to go even further on this topic. Thank you for watching, and remember, to think is already an act of freedom. See you soon on Phi-Wisdom.